Hello paper crafters, I'm Sunny Sky and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US. And today we're going to make this fun Eastery card. We're using the beautiful Peacock set, which is part of Sale-a-bration, so you just have about a week or so left to pick up this stamp set. And I'm going to show you a couple techniques with this card. You will need a couple of sheets of full card size cardstock. One is for the card, which you're going to score in half, and the other one is to lay on these strips that you're making. And we're just going to go ahead and lay on one strip. It's a little bit thicker than the others. And we'll lay them on and then cut it into two card fronts. And then you need a scrap as well of Daffodil Delight and of Whisper White. So take all your cardstock strips and just get some adhesive on the back of them. On the thicker strip, I like to do 2 strips of adhesive. But on the others, 1 strip is fine. And I do like to get them so that the shades of color are different between them. Like I don't want to put a pink next to a purple, just to give them more variety in the look. And so these are strips that I've cut off just off the 8.5 strip side of cardstock. So they'll line up perfectly on top of this half sheet of cardstock. This is the one that is not scored. This is just a canvas to glue these strips down. And then if they don't, if you don't have them perfectly lined up on the edges, that's okay, because we are going to trim a little bit off because this is a layer on the card. So I'm going to trim off a little bit here. And if you have a guillotine cutter, that will be easier since you're working with double sheets of cardstock here with 2 thicknesses. So since the full card is 5.5, I'm going to make this 5 1/4, and I'm going to get the extra off of the end. That is the thicker piece. Whatever color you've put on the end, and put the thicker piece. And then so since it's a 1/4 inch smaller than the full card, we'll make 2 4-inch sections. And I already trimmed a little bit off the right side. And then I'll just trim a little bit off of this one so that I've cut off both ends, which don't have quite as much adhesive, and also which might not be perfectly straight. So you only need 1 for this card, but you'll have extra to do your next card. For the next step, I'm using a scrap of the Daffodil Delight. I'm going to use my embossing buddy so that I can get off any static that might be on the cardstock that would make the embossing powder stick where I don't want it to be. I'm going to use Versamark, which is my invisible sticky ink, and stamp the peacock right in the center. Now there is another stamp with this set that is the full feathers of the peacock that silhouettes the body. But when you're working with Versamark, it's hard to see, and so I used the curving stamp set that would go up behind it instead. And then I'm going to use this long stretchy one to just kind of go out the back. We'll see very little of that on our finished card, but just to add a little more variety there. So this is the full one that would line up together, but because I'm using Versamark, it's hard to see because it's not a dark contrasting color on the cardstock. And so we're just using some Whisper White embossing powder, shaking off the excess, and you can see it stuck pretty good to where it was supposed to because I used that embossing buddy to begin with. And now we will emboss. Okay, so this is all embossed. Let me get my lid back on my Versamark here. So here are my Stampin' Blends. These are our new alcohol-based markers. I've got Night of Navy here, and also the Rich Razzleberry, the light color of the Rich Razzleberry. Because these are alcohol-based and not water-based, you can color on top of your embossing, and they will stick because they're alcohol-based. The color will apply to a non-porous surface. And I'm being a little bit messy here because I'm trying to go quickly for you, so I'm sorry it's not going to look as perfect as I would like it to. Now if you had a broader image with more area to color in, it would be easier to get within the lines. But there's the idea where you can add some color to your embossing if you want, if you're using the alcohol markers. And then I'll just take this over to the Big Shot. I'm going to cut it out of my stitch framelits. circle die and then get a scallop edge around it. And so when I cut out my peacock, I put it over a little bit to the left so that the edge would show, but I'm going to cut off part of the edge. Now when you cut it off, make sure that your feet are standing upright. And just cut some off the edge. You also could leave the whole circle, but I think having just a portion of the circle on this card is going to give a little bit more dimension to it, just visually, to have part of the circle rather than the whole thing. Just give it a little more interest. I'm going to put several dimensionals on the back to give it a little pop. I also went ahead and embossed the greeting using the same white embossing powder that we used on the peacock. And I just did that up in the top, and I did it off to the left a little because I knew we were putting the circle more to the right. All right, and then you just have to add that to your full card. So it's pretty quick. You can emboss and color your embossing and have a colorful card. You could also substitute an Easter set with these colors, would be great. That again, we're kind of getting really close to Easter if you're wanting to do that. So thanks for joining me today. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and go have some fun crafting.